here and not there.
Hello, my name is Nathan and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be making mushroom risotto and she doesn't like mushrooms.
No.
So it's mushroom risotto for me.
Yeah. Like and subscribe.
Anything
if you don't
else?
like mushrooms, comment below. Okay, bye.
Let's make some risotto. Alright, so we have to focus on three main key components for this beautiful mushroom risotto. The first being the rice. How to cook risotto rice. The second is the mushroom puree. These are chestnut mushrooms. Delicious. We're going to make a very rich, intense mushroom puree as a base for this risotto. Next, and finally, is the garnish. We've got these beautiful king oyster mushrooms here, which we are going to cut in half, crisscross hatches, fry them, and baste it like a steak. And we're going to have these beautiful little pieces of fried mushroom on the top as a garnish. That's the main three components we're going to focus on. Don't know how this video is going to be. I don't know whether it's going to be like an uncut or just random chops here and there. But I hope you get some valuable lessons from this. So like Kruti said, like, subscribe, and let's get on with this. So the first thing we're going to do is chop down all these chestnut mushrooms into thin slices so we can turn it into a puree. You don't have to be too precise here. Just make sure they're all roughly the same size so they cook evenly and quickly. Now, mushrooms contain a lot of water, okay? So this is going to reduce in size. It's going to seem like a lot of mushrooms right now, but we can also use this for other stuff. You can use it for tortellini fillings, cannelloni, bases for other dishes. You can literally serve it on its own as a puree. All right, so get a large pan on the heat and get this nice and hot. So a good amount of a neutral oil. Now the mushrooms are in, just leave it, don't stir it. Let the mushrooms get as much colour as possible on the bottom. In the meantime, we're going to take a third of a block of butter and turn this into burnt rosette. Okay, so as you can see, the mushrooms are starting to release all their water and all their liquid. I'm going to keep cooking this down now so we can evaporate as much liquid as possible and we can get them back to frying again. This is why we've added no salt so far, because we don't want to draw out extra moisture with that salt. We want to add the salt when we're blending it for the puree. What we can do now though is add some fresh thyme and plenty of fresh black pepper as well. As you can see, my burnt rosette is coming along nicely. It's going to need a couple more minutes to brown off, and then we're going to leave that on the side to cool down. Alright, burnt rosette is done. We're going to leave this on the side to cool down now. Alright, so the mushrooms are all cooked off now. Release as much water as possible. So we're going to give them one last fry in a small knob of butter. Try to get a little bit more colour on them. This should only take a couple more minutes. Alright, once you're happy with your mushrooms, turn off the heat and just let them cool down on the side for a minute or two. Alright, I thought I'd change up the camera angle a little bit because I'm getting very frustrated with that one in the corner. Puree. I only have one of these cheap little blender things off Amazon. We're going to load up all the mushrooms into here with the burnt rosette. We might need a little bit of extra water to thin it out a little bit because the butter with the water from the mushrooms are going to emulsify it and go thicker. Now, you shouldn't really blend stuff when it's really hot because you'll damage your blender or your food processor, but it does blend smoother when it's hotter. So I've let it cool down for around 5 minutes now because the water retention of the mushrooms keeps it very hot. Otherwise it will break your blender. Mushrooms. We're going to go with half the burnt rosette to start with and plenty of sea salt. This is our puree. We could get it finer with a much better food processor or blender, but this is the best I've got. And that's a little mushroom puree for you all. Okay, so for the risotto, we're going to need a base. 1 shallot, finely diced. And the next part of the base is the stock. I just have some vegetable stock here that's already been pre-measured out. For risotto, we want 3 parts liquid to 1 part rice. I'm just going to rehydrate a few shiitake mushrooms into the stock. And we're going to add those mushrooms with the stock as we're making the risotto. Okay, so before we move on to cooking the risotto, we want to prep the garnish now, so we're just getting ahead of ourselves. I just have some beautiful king oyster mushrooms here, and we're just going to use 1 per portion. We want to treat this almost like a steak. We're going to cut it in half now, we're going to crisscross it, we're going to pan fry it, baste in butter and thyme, and a little bit of garlic later on.
I don't know if you can quite see this on camera, but I've just made some crisscrosses with a knife, very even spacing, not too deep, about 1 millimeter. That's just going to create a really nice texture when we fry the mushroom.
Alright, so moving back onto the risotto, we're going to use the same pan again. 1 for efficiency because I'm lazy and I don't want to wash it up. 2, we've still got all this beautiful flavour and the pan isn't burnt. A small amount of oil, add your shallot, and just sweat that down. We don't want to add any colour to these shallots. Add a small amount of butter and let that cook for another couple of minutes. Okay, so once you've cooked this down, we're going to add the rice. Now you see the colour in the shallots here? That's not from the actual shallots, that's from all the residue it's picked up off the pan once we've added the butter. More colour, more flavour, remember that. Alright, we're going to toast off the risotto rice now for around 2 to 3 minutes. Alright, so as you can see, the risotto rice is starting to look a little bit translucent. We're starting to cook it through, and now we're going to add some white wine. I'm going to cook this wine down now until it's all reduced. If you don't drink alcohol, don't worry, just skip this step and jump straight to adding stock. Once the wine's cooked off, we can start to add the stock. Use enough to cover the rice to start with. And from this point on, I'm going to put a timer on for 18 minutes. Now, keep your heat on the lowest setting possible, and we're going to keep topping up this risotto with the stock so it doesn't dry out. By the time we get to the end of the cooking, we should have used all the stock, and if you need a little bit extra, you can just top it up with a little bit of water. We have 4 minutes left on the timer. We're going to start preparing our garnish over here. In the meantime, in the last couple of minutes of cooking, we want to add 2 tablespoons of the mushroom puree. And just mix that in. Alright, I accidentally forgot to press record, but a little bit of oil in the pan and place your mushrooms flat side down. Add some butter, some garlic, and some fresh thyme. With the risotto in the last minute or 2 of cooking, we're going to add a fuckload of Parmesan cheese. Remember guys, more cheese, more delicious. You want to make sure you do this at the end, either off the heat or at the very end of the cooking. Otherwise, all the fats in this will start to split. A few cracks of black pepper. Just gonna add a tiny little bit of water to loosen it and adjust the seasoning accordingly to how you like it. And at the very end, just add a small knot of butter and we're just gonna melt that in.
With the fresh lemon zest at the end, it just cuts through all that fat. Very fresh, very zingy, delicious. This is a very high fat content dinner. You can reduce it by not using as much butter as me. You don't have to use butter in the puree. You can use less cheese, you could use low fat options. But traditionally speaking, this is how I would make a risotto. It's how I made a risotto when I was working as a chef. And you can do this with mushrooms as they come into season. We used to use black trompettes, morels, hen of the woods, and of course truffle when we had it. So you can use mushrooms whenever they're in season for this, but I've just used mushrooms from the supermarket. It's a delicious little dish. Comment down below if you like mushrooms, like Ruti said earlier. Give this video a big like, I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I'll see you guys later.